people aren't just, seeing us on TikTok and then taking out a policy. They're seeing us on TikTok or Instagram, taking out a policy and then sending that TikTok to their friends or telling their friends about it, which obviously, for a startup who doesn't have the kind of marketing budget of those big insurers is really valuable to us.
If communicating your brand's values to Gen Z fills you with dread, you're not alone. From slang that seems to update on a weekly basis, to memes that can become passé in a matter of days, the generation raised on 24/7 access to the internet can be a tricky audience to win over. But some companies seem to have cracked the code, creating fun, engrossing content aimed squarely at a younger demographic and reaping the rewards in terms of customer engagement. Introducing Australia's Butter Insurance, a Sydney-based startup that's more likely to take its branding cues from the worlds of e-commerce and retail than the conventional trappings of financial services. Butter Insurance was founded in 2020. So what are then the missteps that you see most commonly from travelers? How can people ensure that their visa application or their travel authorization stands the greatest chance of success?
That's really time, like how much time do you have available before your trip. So it's also really the number one reason for people getting their trip delayed, because they underestimate the time it takes to obtain a visa, for instance. It's often perceived as something that you just buy. And we hear applicants often using that word, I'm just going to buy a visa, was actually a foreign government kind of pre-approving your entry into their country, right? So the time that you need to obtain that visa and to have the right documents to get that visa is most often the reason for a delay and what people are missing before. And sometimes it could be the passport expiry date, etc. But it's really making sure you have enough time before your trip.
Bola, when we're talking about travel, obviously, money is always going to be an issue. I wonder what other obstacles exist that prevent young people from, especially underrepresented communities having these experiences.
Yeah, that is the other thing for sure, but outside of money is exposure. And that is something that we at Fly attack. We like to say we're attacking two barriers. One is equipping, and then one is exposing, and then we're equipping. So the travel kits that we give out, which is not just scholarships, but luggage and luggage accessories and how to etiquettes to prepare them to get abroad. But the exposure part, a lot of these students, for them, the idea of travel has never even formulated in their mind, right? We're talking about, we are literally putting passports in the hands of students, and they're the first in their family to have a passport. They're the first in their family to step on a plane.
Only around 20-25% of passengers claim compensation, right? So it's huge minority. So we can, roughly say 75-80% passengers never claim their rightful compensation. And this comes from few reasons. The main reason is people basically don't know their rights because they are not communicated. Second, the big portion of the passengers, they know the rights, but they don't believe anything will happen.
When was the last time your flight was delayed or cancelled? If you're anything like me, you could probably reel off a list of travel nightmares involving anxious hours staring at the departures board, missed connections, luggage not making it onto connecting flights, not to mention the dent in your bank balance that being stuck in an airport for several hours can cause. Flying can be stressful, and unlike consumer protections you may be familiar with in your home country, it's governed by rules drawn up in multiple international jurisdictions with differing obligations towards you, the passenger. But we're here to Sam, let me play kind of devil's advocate for a moment then. I mean, you know, someone could say, well, what does it matter how diverse or representative the insurance industry is? You know, surely the customer ends up with the same product or the same levels of service. How would you respond to that?
That absolutely they will end up with the same product and the same levels of service if we don't get the diversity in. People tend to build from, which is totally understandable, from their own perspectives. So when they're thinking about product design, when they're thinking about the way that they engage with customers, they'll do so from a standpoint of building things that work for them. And unless we get diversity in the industry, we won't get a diversity of thought, and we won't start thinking about how we can build products that solve problems for today's society and today's risk profiles, as opposed to the historical issues that we've had.
I mean, that sounds to me like the perfect segue then into Stella. I mean, do you want to tell me a little bit about, you know, how that company came about, what problems it was solving, why there was a need for a you know, female-centric cover?
Yeah, look, I mean, you know, I have been in the industry for 20 odd years, and have often been the only woman around a table. And I
What's the likelihood that a traveler will have a negative experience when they're seeking medical care abroad? And also, what factors kind of impact that likelihood?
So what we see in average, it's between 10 to 15% of the travelers are going to feel unwell during travel. Not all of them are going to look for medical assistant. Some of them will just take an Advil or take a one-day rest in the hotel, or, you know, to go to the local pharmacy to get something to painkillers. And out of the 10 to 15% people that are getting sick, we see about 2 to 3% that people that are looking for medical assistant. And as I said, if I'm looking at the full population of people that are looking for medical assistant, 85% of the cases are minor cases, like stomach flu, ear pain, a lot of problem with tooth pain, that you need an emergency solution, a broken ankle, some stitches that people need. Those are the minor cases that about 85% of the cases. And then only